often offered at the primary and secondary level, school levels, as well as in higher education. First of all, I would like to thank Universitas PGRI Semarang for
International Webinar Conference presenters and participants. Welcome to the 5th International Conference on Education and Social Sciences hosted by Institution of Research and Community Services Universitas PGRI Semarang on the 5th October 2022. Before we begin, allow me, Dwi Nuvitalia, as the Master of Ceremony, to read the conduct of the program. The first, participants should display your full name and code as shown in the program book. The second, participants should activate the camera and disable the microphone during the opening ceremony and plenary session. And last, there will be a photo session at the end of the opening ceremony. Please cooperate. And then please take a note that all presenters and co-presenter attending the conference must individually complete the registration process by submitting the registration form on the link informed in the rule of conduct in the program book. Okay, I will start now. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Honorable Rector Universitas PGRI Semarang, Associate Professor Sri Suciati, Honorable Head of Institution of Research and Community Services Universitas PGRI Semarang, Associate Professor Seno Warsito, the Chairperson of the 5th International Conference on Education and Social Sciences, Associate Professor Mega Novita, keynote speakers, and distinguished guests and participants. Dear participants, before we proceed our agenda, please take a moment of silence to pray. Thank you. And now we take a moment to sing National Anthem Indonesia Raya and Mars Uplis. Please all sit upright. Thank you. The next agenda is speech. The first speech and report will be delivered by the Head of Institution of Research and Community Services Universitas PGRI Semarang, Associate Professor Seno Warsito. The screen time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable Director of Universitas PGRI Semarang, the Vice Rectors, the Deans, the Directors of Universitas PGRI Semarang, the board members of the 5th International Conference on Education and Social Science Research, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's a great honor and pleasure to welcome you virtually at the 5th International Conference on Education and Social Science Research in 2022. This event is organized by institutions of research and community services, or LPPM, Universitas PGRI Semarang, Indonesia, in cooperation with the 6 co-hosts coming from Indonesia and overseas. We have UTMs, Malaysia, Universitas PGRI Adibuana, Surabaya, PGRI Bojonegoro, Universitas Negeri Malang, Universitas Muti Waluyo Semarang, and Indonesian Research Methodology Lecture Association. The 5th ICESRE 2020 present you a forum for scientists and educators to share knowledge with focus on education and social science research. This event is an activity that has been rotated every year. And on this occasion, we would like to raise the theme, enhancing professional academic culture, freedom to teach, freedom to learn, and freedom to innovate. Freedom to learn present challenges and opportunities for the development of creativity, capacity, personality, and student needs, as well as developing self-reliance in finding and discovering knowledge through the field realities and dynamics such as skill requirements, real issues, social interaction, collaboration, self-management, performance demands, goals, and achievement. To prepare students for rapid social, cultural, occupational change, and technology progress, student competencies must be prepared to adapt to the needs of the times. Universities are required to be able to design and implement innovative learning process. Therefore, starting from this event, we hope we can continue having collaboration, since we have scientists, educators, and practitioners coming from all over the world, from UK, Australia, USA, the Philippines, Nigeria, India, Australia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Mongolia, and Ethiopia. Eventually, we would like to express our gratitude to all the keynote speakers, from Dr. Mike Hardy from Coventry University, United Kingdom, Professor Dr. Ismet Panani from Deakin University, Australia, from Dr. Colin Pilgrims from Schoolcraft College, USA, and then the Associate Professor, Dr. Yoga and PD from Universitas PGRI Semarang. And also, thanks for the invited speakers and all the participants who have joined virtually. Our appreciation also goes to the committee who have worked hard and make this event possible. Thus, we wish all participants may engage in the fruitful and meaningful discussion in this conference. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Mr. Seno Warsito. The next speech will be delivered by Director of Universitas PGRI Semarang, Associate Professor Sri Suciati. The screen time is yours.
Thank you, Ibu Nufi. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good morning. First, my apology for being late due to there was another activity. Praise to Allah, the Almighty, that on this occasion, we are all gathered in a scientific forum, the 5th International Conference on Education and Social Science Research, ICESRE 2022, conducted by Institute for Research and Community Service, LPPM of Universitas PGRI Semarang. Secondly, on behalf of Rector of Universitas PGRI Semarang, we'd like to extend our gratitude to all distinguished guests for your presence in this meeting. It's indeed our great honor to have you all here in this important occasion. It is an honor for Universitas PGRI Semarang, UGRIS Indonesia, to be the host of the 5th International Conference on Education and Social Science Research. We are pleased to have cooperation with 6 co-hosts coming from Indonesia and overseas. We have UTM Malaysia, Universitas PGRI Adibuana Surabaya, IKIP PGRI Bojonegoro, Universitas Negeri Malang, Universitas Ngudi Waluyo Semarang, and IRMLA, Asosiasi Dosen Metodologi Penelitian Indonesia, to run this international event. We also have participants from various countries, UK, Australia, USA, the Philippines, Nigeria, India, Australia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Mongolia, and Ethiopia. Therefore, we expect that the cooperation in running the event will be successful in the implementation. We also proudly invited Professor Mike Hardy, Coventry University, UK, Professor Ismet Fanani, Deakin University, Australia, Professor Colin Pilgrim, Schoolcraft College, USA, and Dr. Wiyoko, Universitas PGRI Semarang, Indonesia, as the keynote speakers in this awesome event. We'd like to express our sincere gratitude and appreciation to all parties for any fatigue and support in organizing this event. Furthermore, we expect that this conference can facilitate researchers, educators, academicians, and practitioners to discuss and collaborate. We hope that this conference has positive impacts to strengthen and foster international networks and publications related to this field. Have a wonderful time, everyone. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Sri Suciati. Okay, after the speech, now we would like to take a photo session with all participants. Please open your camera. All right, thank you. Well, now without further ado, I would like to proceed the session by handing over the time to the moderator for the plenary sessions. Allow me to read her short biography. Dr. Sukmanur Ardini, SSMPD, is a lecturer at the English Education Department, Faculty of Language and Art of Universitas PGRI Semarang, Central Java, Indonesia. Currently, she pursued her doctoral degree from Semarang State University. For achieving her doctor with publication Scopus Q1, she was rewarded by the Education Endowment Fund Investment LPDP. Another Scopus Q1 publication achievement she received in 2019. Since 2013, she has been involving in the National Research and Community Services under the program of Indonesian Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology. In this ongoing year, she is also conducting joint research with UTM Malaysia. She is a chief editor of a national journal named Allure, a journal of applied linguistics and literature. Her research interests relate to the area of English language education, including linguistics and English teaching. Let us welcome our moderator, Dr. Sukmanur Ardini.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Good morning, everyone. Okay.
Morning, Dr. Sukman.
Morning. Honorable Rector Universitas PGRI Semarang, our keynote speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Sukmanur Ardini. It's such an honor to be assigned as moderator for the 5th International Conference on Education and Social Science Research, ICESRE 2022. Academic culture is a culture or an attitude of life that always seeks scientific truth through academic activities in academic communities, which develops freedom of thought, openness, critical, analytical, rational, and objective thought in academic communities. For that, we have 4 speakers who are already with us. Professor Mike Hardy, Professor Ismet Fanani, Professor Colin Pilgrim, and Associate Professor Wiyaka. I'd like to greet Professor Hardy. Hello, Professor Hardy.
Hello,
Are
how
you
are
there?
you? Hello, can you hear me?
Hello. Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you. How are
Good.
you?
I'm
Welcome
very
to
well.
EJ5. Next, I would like to greet Professor Ismet Fanani.
Hello.
Hello.
Good day from Melbourne.
Melbourne. What time is it there, Professor?
It is now 1:37 in the afternoon.
Oh,
So
in
we
the
are
afternoon.
in Indonesia.
I see. Welcome to ICESRE 5, Prof.
Thank you.
And then we have Professor Colin Pilgrim. Are you there?
I am. Hello.
Hi. Hello. How are you?
Good. Nice to be here.
Thank you very much. Welcome to ICESRE 5. And Mr. Wiyaka. Good morning, Mr. Wiyaka. How are you? Thank you. And welcome to ICESRE 5. All right. To all keynote speakers, we need you to stay tuned into the question and answer session. All right, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to read a brief introduction to our keynote speakers. First, Professor Dr. Mike Hardy, CMG OBE. He is Chair of Intercultural Relation and Founding Director of the Center of Trust, Peace and Social Relations at Converty University, twice honored in the UK, OBE in 2001 for his peace-building work in the Middle East, and appointed a CMG Companion of Honor of St. Michael and St. George. 2010 for his work internationally in intercultural dialogue. In 2002, he was honored by the Palestinian Welfare Association for work with NGOs in Gaza and WB. It's a very long list of awards and works. from Professor Hardy that I cannot state one by one due to the limited time we have. Let me read the last one. His latest work based on extended interviews with global influencers. He also leads a new series of strategic conversations of peace and security 2030. Second, Professor Dr. Ismet Fanani. He is a sociolinguist with a PhD from Cornell University, USA. He is currently Professor of Language and Society in the School of Humanities and Social Sciences at Deakin University in Melbourne, Australia. His interests relate to the experience of aging and social change in modern Indonesia. In particular, the interaction between local and national culture with an emphasis on language and language issues, as well as the impact of religion in the social environment. He has worked with universities and other institutions across Indonesia and the Malay world, and is a well-known writer and social commentator. In addition to a range of scholarly works on topics such as modern Indonesian society in the global context, disaster reconstruction, aging in Indonesia, Indonesian and Malay proverbs, and the development of the Indonesian language. He is the author of many short stories and 2 novels. Move to the third keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Colleen Pilgrim. She is currently a professor at Schoolcraft College in Psychology Department, where she has taught online and traditional classroom courses for over 20 years. Her global projects have included collaborative efforts in Colombia, Turkey, China, and Indonesia, and focus on substance use, mental health, and lifespan issues. She is an active member of the Schoolcraft College International Institute, as well as the Midwest Institute for International and Intercultural Education. Professor Pilgrim serves as an editor for the Schoolcraft College Community College Enterprise Journal. Her commitment to students, her colleague, and community have been the focus of her campus-wide committees and organizations. Lastly, Associate Professor Wiyaka is a faculty member in the English Education Department of Universitas PGRI Semarang, Indonesia. He holds a doctorate degree in language education from Semarang State University, Indonesia. Besides teaching, he has worked with several research projects funded by the Ministry of Higher Education and other sponsors. His interest in teaching and research, including language assessment, reading, writing, and teaching practicum. He has published research articles in several journals and authored textbooks in assessment and teaching. Currently, he is the chair of the Institute of Professions Development, Universitas PGRI Semarang, in which teaching practicum belongs to one of his authorities. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before the presentation begins, let me tell you how this session will run. Firstly, each of keynote speaker will deliver the presentation for 20 minutes. After all the keynote speakers done, the session will be continued by question and answer session for about another 10 or 15 minutes. And finally, the session will be ended by a conclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, now allow me to welcome Prof. Hardy to deliver his presentation about adaptive leader within the academic, freedoms and relevance for the 21st century. Professor Hardy, are you ready?
I am ready. Can you see my screen?
Yes. It's
Excellent.
very clear. Your voice is also very clear.
Good.
Time screen is yours, Prof. Please.
Thank you. So it's really very much a privilege to be here, and to be the first keynote speaker is always a challenging task. But this is a really important time for the Academy and for education. And I'm delighted that this topic has been raised as the major part of this conference, this 5th conference. So I'm going to talk about my current research, which is focused really in the area of peace and security, but really emphasizes the importance of leadership in our 21st century. And I think it's a very appropriate place to start for this conference. The extent to which we as educationalists, as committed to developing human capital, as to provide security for the freedoms that are highlighted in the title, is very much down to the way we lead as leaders and the way our leadership impacts upon the students and subjects that we nurture. So that's my topic. I'm writing at the moment, really my research on the changing leadership impact at a global level. So my topic this morning, very brief topic, is about how we should look more carefully at leadership within the Academy in order to protect the freedoms that we value and to ensure that the Academy provides relevance for the 21st century. My thesis, of course, is that better leadership is a critical factor for human flourishing. And when we have better leadership, universities and schools can create much more opportunity for human development. And it's too often the case in my research that I see evidence of bad leadership. This isn't about deliberate or cynical leadership. It's just leadership that doesn't always take the opportunity of the 21st century and meet the challenges of the 21st century. So I'm going to be looking in my brief talk at what I mean by leadership, its role and purpose. I'm going to focus this on the universities sector as what I call the terrain for us to take action in. And I'm going to refer, of course, to the challenges, particular challenges in our small and interconnected world. But I'm not going to end without some clear prescriptions and some ideas. University leadership wears many hats. It challenges itself in its work to meet ambitions of other people and meet the aspirations of other people. We are, in fact, agents of change and agents of progress. And I'm talking about all of us because my definition of leadership is a process of mobilizing talent, whoever and wherever you find it. It's not about some hero leader as a rector or board of governors. There's no shortage of motivation or focus among leadership in higher education, but I suggest it's often ill-equipped and ill-prepared. It doesn't always ask whose leadership and whose university is it for. Is the university a servant of the nation state, of our broader global community, or is it just a place where professors and students benefit? Is it for private good or is it for public good? I think as leaders in the Academy, we have two principal responsibilities, and leadership must embrace this. We're managers of what I call a pipeline of human development. This is the management of the future talent, the future strength and skills that our global economy will need. And secondly, we have these two very deliberate processes. We need to take responsibility to make sense of the context in which we operate and to enable change to happen. This is challenging in the 21st century, and I want to highlight something that's pretty self-evident to us all. We're much less secure now, we're better informed, but at the same time, we're pervasively misinformed by new media and mass communications. The Academy is largely should be engaged in the quality and process of information and exploit the networks and global interconnections that we have and can sponsor. We're in a context, secondly, that operates with declining levels of trust and fewer trusted institutions. We don't always trust each other, and we certainly don't always trust the institutions with which we engage. We have to work at that as a leadership. We have to commit to changing that. And we have a world which I regret is less equal, less fair, and more challenged than ever by ethical dilemmas. These are the territories of academic leadership. The stakes are very high. There are consequences for our success as leaders in schools and universities. But there are also three questions that are worthy of asking. How successful is the leadership community upon which we depend to develop and support us in our work at this time? How well is the community? And by community, I mean those who study leadership and practice it, who help with leadership development programs. How well is that community helping university leadership to make sense of our complex world? How much time do we spend? Do we stop our everyday life and just take stock of the complexity in which we're operating? And this conference, I've seen many of the discussions will focus on this area. I'm very pleased to see. And what partnerships in the community of leadership are offered to the university leaders to help make the change that we need? This is a partnership between parents and families, between neighborhoods, between governments, and between the private sector. So some prescriptions. I want to use the rest of my limited time to look at action plans, things that we must do. I think we could talk forever about the nature of the challenges we face. So my work looks largely at what I call deliberative leadership. This can help when there are no easy solutions available. It involves careful thought and discussion when making decisions. Leadership is hard. The role of leaders is difficult, and we should invest time in its work. We learn to control the context that I've described very briefly, this complex adaptive systems in which we operate. We learn to control that through experimentation. We cultivate a diversity of viewpoints to generate a large number of options. The role of leadership should be as open as our moderator said, drawing in expertise and strengths where we can find it. Secondly, deliberative leaders also lead with empathy. They reward their colleagues and employees' performance with autonomy and independence. And they look for winning solutions for all stakeholders. This focus on quantity and quality and effectiveness of support to leadership is critical, and we must invest time in the academy on supporting those who make the decisions. Think again about viewing leadership through the lens of the leader. Leadership has to reposition leader, has to use and understand the role that the leader plays and not rely on the leader to provide all the leadership. And there should be an emphasis and commitment to being accountable to the problem and challenge of ethical work, to inclusivity, and to public conversations, because we need to be agents of progress in the area of trust. So this is quite a challenge for leadership. We have these many roles. We have to make sense of the context. We have to make change happen. And we have to nurture the integration and interconnectedness of our academy with the rest of society. My work on adaptive leadership works closely with the ideas from Ronnie Heifetz at Harvard and others. And I really see this move from solving technical problems to confronting adaptive challenges as being really important. We often say that we live in a very complex world. I'm not sure that we always understand what the implications of that is for our work. This is much more than living in a complicated world. The world is complicated, it's difficult. But unlike complication, which can be researched, which can be studied and can be solved through experimentation and innovation, complexity deals with the unknown, deals with the unpredictable and irreproducible elements that we know are features of our life. As example, we know we've all come through this pandemic of coronavirus. We know that the science tells us it's complicated and we must make sure we socially distance one from another. This is fine. This is a way to solve the complications of transmission. The complexity is that there are many contexts in the world where social isolation and social detachment is very difficult, if not impossible. In the slums of poor countries, in the dense populations of overcrowded cities, we can't expect that social distancing to be easy. It's much more complex. So what does that adaptive leadership look like in education? My research is looking at a number of things to observe, to watch for, to check out if it exists in your school or your college. Do we have processes which are comfortable with uncertainty? Do we encourage innovation and experimentation? Do we take risks? Do we look for strength in unexpected places? We don't just look at experts, but we look at experts and the context in which they operate. Do we lead inclusively and with empathy? Do we value self-correction? Are we self-critical as we try and develop critical skills in others? And do we inspire by being visionary and having belief in the journey that we set on? In the academy, if we get this right, our leadership will have some characteristics, and we should look around in our academies, in our institutions to check how we're doing. Do we manage loss and highlight what we want to save? When we analyze difficult positions, do we recognize that our solutions may bring losers as well as winners? And do we nurture and cherish and protect those who lose? Can we learn from our mistakes? Can we reward good intent? Why do we assume that as experts we have all the answers when it's patently obvious we don't? And can we be sensitive to the fact that our decisions and our policies, necessary at many times, will bring consequences and sometimes negative consequences for others? And most importantly, can we make space for open reflection? Can we recognize that our work will be messy, will be imperfect? And can we not worry about that, but embrace it? How can we best support leadership to generate those sorts of characteristics and qualities? Then there's a list that you'll be familiar with. We have to know and understand how leadership can work in a different way. We can share good practices across our network. This conference is a good example of that. We can promote evidence. We can explore and share. We can develop toolkits and post them online and share them. And we can become much more focused in some of our discussions, looking at particular sectors, whether that's STEM science, teaching of mathematics, or teaching of religion, or whether it's teaching in particular cultures, and not assume that there's a global culture that can work for all. This is a very short time to develop some of these ideas, but I'm very grateful for your patience, and thank you very much indeed for listening.
All right, thank you so much, Professor Hardy. Thank you for giving us such a motivational presentation about how we see another perspective to see 21st century, how we deal leadership as a challenge to be an adaptive leadership. Is very interesting. Thank you so much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to listen to the second presentation that is about the teaching of Indonesian at Deakin University in Melbourne, Australia. To Professor Ismet Fanani, the screen time is yours for 20 minutes ahead. Are you with us? Hello? Professor
Hello?
Fanani?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I'm here.
Can you hear my voice? Yeah.
But,
Now it's time for you to present your presentation, Prof.
Thank you. Yeah, I will be presenting through the video that I've made, that I have sent to the conference
Committee?
and I was told that they are going to do that.
Oh, so there will be a video that you have sent to the committee?
Oh, yes. And it has been confirmed this morning as well.
All right. The committee, please.
First of all, I would like to thank Universitas PGRI Semarang for inviting me to this conference. I would also like to thank Ibu Mega for her support during my preparation to participate in this conference. Now, I've been asked to talk about the teaching of Indonesian at Deakin University. Indonesian has been a significant foreign language in Australia since the 1950s, and has been offered at the primary and secondary level, school levels, as well as in higher education and technical and further education, or TAFE. The choice to make Indonesian available at these various levels of education is based on the proximity of Indonesia to Australia, the importance of the Asian region in Australian foreign policy and economic activities, and a mistaken belief that Indonesian is an easy language for English speakers to master. At Deakin University specifically, Indonesian has been taught since the university's founding in 1974 and has been maintained over the years, despite the closure of several other language programs. The language is offered on 2 campuses in Melbourne and Geelong, and the program has been available fully online since 1999. It can be studied as a major, minor, or elective. Over the past several decades, interest in and perceived career value of Indonesian has declined dramatically. This change has been seen at the school level as well as in the higher education and TAFE. At present, Indonesian at the university level in Australia is in steep decline, and the number of programs has fallen from a high of 22 in 1992 to 9 at present. The COVID-19 situation and the financial impact it had on universities contributed to this decline. The current policy of the Australian government no longer includes Indonesian as a language of national and strategic importance. While the program at Deakin remains in operation, it is greatly reduced in terms of both staff and student numbers, which reflects the national situation at this time. The aim of Indonesian teaching at Deakin over the past 20 years, has been to give students an ability to use the language naturally, colloquially, and most important, appropriately. It is important to note that colloquially here does not refer to language that is informal, that includes slang or other non-standard forms of expression. or that attempts to replicate the dialects of Indonesians. Colloquial language use in this particular context means language that is expected in a given context and makes use of expressions that are used by Indonesians in terms of geographic location, discourse style, and temporality. Language style, based on social conventions determined to be relevant to the learners in question, is incorporated into study materials, which were written specifically for the programs here at Deakin. This approach recognizes that learners cannot accurately judge the social aspects of a given context, and that mistakes in this judgment can lead to communication breakdown. For this reason, purpose-written materials have been a mainstay of the Indonesian program at Deakin. At the lower level, there is first and second year university study. The focus is on conversational language that introduces learners to standard Indonesian in a range of social settings. In all cases, the context as well as the speakers portrayed, including characteristics that might be relevant to language use, are outlined to give learners some idea of when and with whom the language would be used. Efforts are made to include a range of common vocabulary, even though vocabulary is never presented in isolation, but always as part of a discourse. The dialogues are presented in Indonesian and English. Each dialogue is followed by a set of study questions divided into 3 steps. The first of these relates to comprehension and items asked as and items that relates to the content of the dialogue. The second type of question relates to students' own experience in the social context in question, while the third type concerns their opinion or perception about elements of the content. The aim here is to enable students to express their ideas in relation to observable events outside themselves, their own experience, and their perceptions and emotion. Experience has shown that such exercises are highly effective in overcoming reliance on first language syntax that is incorrect in Indonesian, and for giving students a correct and appropriate model of language use. Giving students an opportunity to hear the language is central to successful language teaching. For this reason, recordings are available of the dialogues and selected exercise sets. Efforts were made to recruit native and highly fluent non-native speakers to play the role in these dialogues, to give them an element of reality, as well as to highlight the sociolinguistic identity of speakers. Finally, the material purpose-written for Indonesian units at Deakin contains extensive grammar material with explanations and examples of points that appear in the accompanying dialogue. Grammar explanation in the language of learners is vital in mastery because adult students cannot infer grammar accurately from examples alone, as well as to overcome the tendency to rely on the grammar and structure of the first language. At higher levels of study, typically on the 3rd and 4th years, material centers on readings or are adapted from authentic examples of language taken from Indonesian newspapers. These texts are edited to match students' level of mastery, as well as to adapt the language to students' level of ability. They are followed by the same 3 types of questions as the dialogue describes above, and have purpose-written grammar material and exercises are based on the characteristics of the language used. This material not only supports mastery at a higher level, but gives learners important insight into various social, cultural, and historical issues in Indonesia. The overall strategy in material development, then, is that learners cannot make judgments about certain aspects of a foreign language and must have this information provided to them. The decision, so to speak, about what aspects of these language elements should be taught must be made by expert instructors. On the other hand, learners must be encouraged to use their initiative and creativity to express their ideas and thoughts using the language they have at a given time, whether that is 1 day or 3 years into their study of the language. Deakin has always used technology in the teaching of Indonesian, beginning from CDs containing recorded dialogues to the present time, where the entire body of study material is presented online through a learning management platform, such that it can be accessed at any time by learners. This is intended to encourage autonomous learning, improve flexibility in teaching and presentation modes, and allow for non-linear usage by learners. Deakin began to offer Indonesian in a fully online manner in 1999. And this technology, which was put into place then, has developed over the ensuing 20 plus years as new platforms with more powerful interfaces became available. This has required a commitment by the university to maintaining servers and providing space for the material, as well as offering language staff the use of state-of-the-art facilities to make recordings. It should be noted that the development of online teaching materials is extremely labor-intensive and requires great skill on the part of language staff who will create it. Little assistance is likely to be available for content, although technical support may be provided by professional learning designers at the university level. It is also necessary to plan whole units or even the whole course before any material is produced in order to identify gaps and ensure logical progression and increasing mastery. Indonesian language teaching at Deakin has been very successful, and for many years was the leading program in Australia based on size and innovation. The innovative aspects of the materials and approach were cited in Pascoe's The Lettered Country, a publication of the Australian Universities Teaching Committee, which documented the leading edge programs in higher education at the time. One of the features that has made the program so successful and is central to its unique approach is the focus on preparation and autonomous study at all levels of language mastery. The premise of this approach is that students must do all the aspects of study that can be done without a teacher by themselves as part of their preparation, so that limited class time can be used for the kind of practice that require a native or near-native speaker instructor. Typically, these class activities center on natural spoken interaction guided by the material students were required to cover for a given class. The minimal class time cannot be used for exercises or practices that can be done independently. Specifically, learners are required to memorize the dialogues before class. The aim of this is to have available to them complete syntactic examples. They are strongly discouraged from learning individual words out of context, that is. In addition, preparation includes studying the questions that follow the dialogues and thinking about possible answers, reading the grammar section, and doing the accompanying exercises. For students at a higher level, where the material is based on readings as opposed to dialogues, before class preparation consists of reading the material, studying and answering the questions, reading the grammar, and doing the exercises that accompany it. If students have prepared for class in the way they are directed to, the available time can be used for interaction of a kind that can only be achieved through direct interaction between a learner and an experienced speaker. Successful preparation also builds confidence, as learners know there will be no material covered in class that they are not familiar with. This is one of the greatest challenges to teaching staff. Regardless of the student's level, they cannot use any language structures or vocabulary that has not been covered in the material up to that point. Language learning never really ends for non-native speaker if they wish to have a meaningful ability to interact in the language of study. The focus at Deakin on preparation and foundational skills serves another purpose, namely to support autonomous study of the kind that will be necessary for learners who wish to develop real mastery. Because this is a university course, there is a need for assessment. Assessment in Indonesian at Deakin has focused on authentic assessment, the value of which is amply discussed in literature. Assessment in Indonesian at Deakin uses a number of formats. Quizzes are a significant part of assessment and are taken by students online under timed conditions. The format of these assessments may be a dialogue with one speaker's utterances left blank to be supplied by students, multiple choice questions about grammatical forms, multiple choice items where the students must select the best answer, and written version of pattern practice exercises. Online assessment using recorded questions that must be played by students before choosing the best answer from a set of possibilities have also been used, but internet service and device compatibility remains a problem when students access assessment from home. And assessment of this kind are often problematic. In addition to the practice of using authentic assessment, several other principles guide assessment at Deakin. And they are: 1, assessment questions must be designed in such a way that the answer cannot be looked up in a textbook or online. 2, no examples of incorrect grammar must be used among incorrect multiple choice answers, for example. The incorrect answers must be incorrect because of context, not grammar or structure. And 3, assessment must never use words or structures that have not been seen and used by learners. The rationale for each of these principles is important. The rationale for the first principle is to eliminate the temptation to cheat. It must be acknowledged that almost all students working independently at home will be tempted to cheat. In order for assessment to be meaningful, the possibility of this must be reduced or eliminated if possible. The rationale for second principle is that any example the language learners encounter may be recalled. This includes errors as well as correct language. The rationale for the third principle is that for assessment to be meaningful, students should not have to guess or try to extend their knowledge in situations that have real consequences, such as assessment tasks that contribute to a grade. The elements described above that have made the Indonesian program at Deakin successful require a great deal of planning, effort, and testing to put into effect. Materials development is ongoing. At the upper levels, material needs to be constantly updated to encompass current usage and the topics of relevance in Indonesian society. At lower levels, where content change is less, presentation, explanatory supports, and interactive exercises and assessments need constant refining. When new technologies, especially in the online environment, began to be available for language teaching, it was often suggested that their use would save time and effort on the part of the designers and instructors. This idea is still prevalent, although in the experience of the Deakin program, unrealistic. While some time is saved by automated marking, the design, process, and implementation are extremely time-consuming and require almost constant work by those involved in writing and updating teaching materials. The main benefits are to students. If the use of technology allows for greater flexibility in study options, fully online distance study, non-linear presentation and use of materials, choice of preferred time to do assignments and assessments. These are things many students claim to want, although experience suggests participation in online classes tends to be low. Nonetheless, if attention is paid to the demands of technology use and it is applied to the areas of study where it can be most beneficial, there is clear value in the use of technology, although some aspects of language will always have to be learned in other ways. Thank you very much.
Answer session. So please be ready with your question. You may raise your hand or type down your question into the chat box, and then I will read them for you. Thank you for the kind attention. Now is the time for Professor Colleen Pilgrim to deliver her presentation of freedom to innovate, embedding critical thinking and cultural awareness in our course content. Professor Pilgrim, are you with me?
I am, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Time is yours.
Thank you. So good morning. I am pleased to participate in this conference on enhancing professional academic culture. Bear with me, I am struggling with a little bit of a cold. So before we started, I just wanted to give you a little bit of picture of the campus I'm coming from. This is Schoolcraft College, a snapshot of our college. We are a community college, meaning we serve the surrounding community. We're a two-year college for undergraduates who are either obtaining a two-year degree or they're transferring to the university. And the majority of my students are working outside the classroom, either part-time or full-time. And many of my students are returning to the classroom as adults after having been away for quite some time. Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't going to share the whole time. I was just going to talk to everyone and then toggle back and forth if that's okay.
Okay.
So I know that many of you are students and professors in education and the social sciences. And I wanted to speak about an area that would be of an interest and importance to you. And as I pondered possible keynote topics, I thought about how my classroom teaching of undergraduate students has changed over the course of the last 3 decades. As a new psychology professor, my course is focused on ensuring the transmission of the psychology content to my students. Many of my courses were filled with the latest research findings. Students were tested on their knowledge of these findings as well as the current terminology. I struggled each term to make sure that as much psychology content as possible was provided in the course. Indeed, my college had hired me to teach psychology, and teach psychology was what I did. So fast forward some years, and as a seasoned professor and now a parent, I started to question my focus on the content and whether this truly served the needs of my students. The majority of my students were not headed to graduate school, and only a handful each term were psychology majors. I wondered how much of this content was relevant or even retained by my students in their lives and careers. And I started to think more about the skills that my students would need and what would better serve them regardless of their major. And so what I began to do then was I pivoted, and now the focus within my classroom is on critical and creative thinking and social and cultural awareness. And I embed these within my classroom. I'll begin by discussing critical and creative thinking, and then I'll talk about its importance in developing innovative learning within the classroom. And then I'll follow up with a link to how it's linked to creative thinking. And then I'll tackle social and cultural awareness. So during the beginning of the 21st century, the plethora of information from the internet played an increasing role in my students' lives. Students didn't necessarily need as much psychology content plugged into my course. What these students needed were the skills to sift through the constant stream of content from news sources and their media pages. Psychology terminology and content was now at their fingertips, but they lacked the skills to determine how to process and filter the content. Indeed, what they lacked was the critical thinking skills for filtering through research, making its way into mainstream media. Much has been written about the increase in beliefs about conspiracy theories, be it COVID-19 is a hoax or the moon landing never occurred. Currently in the United States, we have a large portion of the population that believes our current President Biden did not win his election. In a recent article by Elizabeth Tice, she reminds us that our undergraduate students come to our classrooms shaped by their families and communities of origin, and that they, like us, are not necessarily aware of their own biases. It's our job as educators to expand their minds and to foster critical and creative thinking. So how was I going to foster more critical thinking within the classroom? I realized that in the beginning of each psychology textbook was probably the most relevant section of the course to any student, regardless of their major. the scientific, the scientific method and research methodology. Now, I'll admit that even as a psychology researcher myself, I usually viewed the scientific method as material to quickly move through so as to get to the more psychology content of the course. Now, I taught research methodology, but I spent little effort on ensuring that students truly understood the process of science, or even more importantly, applying it to their lives. For example, in the past, I'd quickly give examples of case studies or surveys or experiments, and then move on with little discussion of the specifics or the pros and cons to each of these methods. Students were not given the opportunity to practice and think critically with a scientific method framework. What's happening now in my courses? I've pivoted and structured so as to help students learn to think like scientists. They learn not only that science is a process, but they also practice these process skills. Scientific thinking and research methodology is now a fundamental core of my undergraduate courses. I'm not rushing past to get to the psychology topics. Rather, the scientific method and critical thinking is embedded and a core part of my course content. So how does my current classroom look this fall with my incoming undergraduates? Well, currently my students are reading and analyzing primary research articles. I provide articles and also require students to bring their own examples to class. Similar to the past, they learn the research terms, but now I spend more time with the learning of these topics. More importantly, we analyze the scientific articles with their new knowledge of research methods. Students are encouraged to understand the theoretical perspective that leads to the hypotheses of the study. We spend class time discussing the hypotheses and methods of the studies, along with the findings and limitations. And as we move through these discussions, students must think critically about the research and come to understand science as a process. Students learn the circle of science as they discuss limitations of the current study, not as an attempt to say the study has no merit, but to understand that many studies tackled by divergent theories and hypotheses need to be explored. My hope is that they retain some of the research terminology in the years to come. However, it's more crucial they retain the skill of critical thinking about research and are open to considering opposing positions. As academics, we often rely on our textbooks within the undergraduate classroom and wait until graduate school for them to tackle primary sources. I think this is unwise, as the majority of our students will not be attending graduate school, and their need to understand the research before them has never been greater. What our students need is the ability to think critically about the research they are inundated with on a daily basis. Students will read about research in the news, and it is upon us as educators and social scientists to ensure that they are able to think critically about what they are reading. Indeed, social science research is more apt to be reported in media outlets than, say, the latest finding in chemistry or physics. Let me take a moment to stress a particular problem with media feeds for our students and indeed everyone. The algorithms for our media surfing suggest more like-minded articles, which often reiterates the same narrative. Students may be reading multiple news outlets or articles, but they may not differ in overall content or theoretical underpinnings. Using the scientific method within the classroom, students engage multiple theories and hypotheses and begin to realize that they must look to the data being presented. Students view how diverging hypotheses are discussed and then settled with looking at the actual data. A key here is to be critiquing various ideas and hypotheses, not simply to settle on our own biases. Now, up to this point, I haven't mentioned the creative aspect of the scientific method and how this plays out in my classroom. The education and social scientists in the audience are well aware of how messy our research with human participants can truly be. We know that multiple variables and compounds are part of our research, and being creative in our research design is a crucial component of thinking like a scientist. This message is relayed to students when we begin to discuss and analyze the research. They're asked to be creative in suggesting how the authors might restructure the study to improve upon the results. And as we discuss designing a research study, they begin to understand the creative aspect of thinking through all potential variables and compounds that might impact the study. In learning and applying research methods, they start to view science as a creative process and not simply memorizing a set of facts. Now, restructuring my course was not done in isolation on my campus, and I need to stress that the ability to focus my course on critical and creative thinking was supported by my college administration. As part of our accreditation process, Schoolcraft College implemented core abilities into all courses on campus. Core abilities are broad outcomes or skills that every graduate is expected to achieve, and each course on campus must fulfill either one or two core abilities within the course content. And you can see them on your screen. Communicate effectively. I just talked about demonstrate creative and critical thinking, and that one has been actually implemented in all of our psychology courses. That's the one we chose throughout all courses. Use technology effectively, use mathematics, manage information, work cooperatively, act responsible, and demonstrate social and cultural awareness, which I'll get to next. So our academic culture on campus has allowed us the freedom to innovate within our courses through choosing and embedding skills within our discipline content. Next, I'd like to address social and cultural awareness in the classroom. I'm assuming the audience, being educators and social scientists, place high importance on social and cultural awareness for the academic culture and student growth. However, what I'd like to suggest as we prepare our course and classroom materials is to embed social and cultural awareness within the course content. So often my colleagues and other educators discuss adding a few global modules to a course as a way of fostering social and global awareness with students. Well, I'm always pleased to see global content in a course, and I would not suggest this is a terrible idea. I would assert it's not as effective as embedding within the course. Embedding social and global content throughout all lesson plans allows students the entire semester to engage and think about these issues. In addition, when you embed global issues across the curriculum, students understand that all content can and should be recognized with a social and cultural lens. Such an understanding does not need to be taught, rather it becomes second nature by the end of the term to view topics across different cultures. Well, what do I mean by this? Well, for example, in my social psychology course, two constructs of individualism and collectivism are discussed early in the course. And as I assume most of you know, at the broadest definitional level, individualism speaks to the focus of culture on the individual goals. In more collectivist cultures, the family and other significant groups are often at the center of one's goals. So once these terms are introduced, we continue to circle back and discuss other topics of the course within both an individualistic and a collectivist framework. Students are continuously engaged in thinking and discussing beyond their own culture of origin. And we as educators know this is the first step toward developing global students who are able to understand beyond their own experiences and relate to others with differing opinion and worldviews. Now, again, I must admit, once again, that my college has allowed me to embed social and cultural awareness in my courses, as I mentioned. But in addition, we have a Schoolcraft College International Institute, which promotes courses with a global focus. These courses are designated with special status of global focus in our college catalog. And students who take at least 15 credits have a designation of global endorsement on their degree. Schoolcraft College funds the International Institute and provides stipends to the coordinators for that program. I encourage us as we prepare for our courses to innovate our teaching and learning by increased efforts to embed social and cultural awareness in our course content. Freedom to teach and engage our students in learning benefits from embedding social and cultural awareness throughout the course. Now, it should be noted that me speaking to you today exemplifies academic innovation with colleagues from across the globe. How is it that me, an educator and researcher from a community college in the United States, came to speak to all of you today? Well, it started with my campus work and social and global awareness with my students. This led to additional collaboration with colleagues on my campus, then with colleagues in other states in the United States, and ultimately to work with colleagues teaching in other countries. Myself and colleagues at Atmajaya Catholic University of Indonesia in Jakarta, Professors Teresa Shante and Nani Nurachman, applied for and received fellowship through the Council of American Overseas Research Centers and the American Institute for Indonesian Studies. And our fellowships were for cross-cultural collaboration. So in 2018, I came to Indonesia as a guest lecturer and to conduct research in Jakarta with my colleagues at Atmajaya. And you can see in the photos here, me with colleagues and with students. And the following year, Professor Teresa Shante came to Schoolcraft campus in the same vein, and she lectured with my students, and we conducted additional research. Our focus on social and cultural awareness had brought us to innovations within our classrooms that neither of us recognized at the beginning of our journey. Indeed, these organizations gave us the freedom to teach, research, and learn within our social and global focus. Their mission is to foster exchange of public education, research exchange, and collaboration between Indonesia and the United States. And today my hope is that my talk can further this mission. So in my final segment though, I do want to make clear that I'm not arguing for a lack of content within our classrooms. This is not an either or scenario. Indeed, research suggests that content is required for critical thinking, and programs that have sought critical thinking in the absence of content are not successful. For an excellent discussion on how to frame critical thinking in the classroom, an occasional paper by Daniel Willingham from the University of Virginia at Charlottesville is a good start. He argues that content is crucial to effective critical thinking, and that what we mean by critical thinking skills may vary by discipline. Thus, content is needed in our courses, as without this knowledge, students are unable to process at a deeper level and engage in the critical thinking. In addition, being specific as to the type of critical thinking you are asking of your students is crucial. For me as a scientist, my goal for my students is for them to read research in their newsfeed and be able to recognize potential limitations or biases in the reporting. Moreover, students need to understand where that research came from and have the ability to find the original academic source for verification. If you wish to embed a skill, think small. For example, what's a specific critical thinking goal for your students? And then embed this within the content of your course. Similarly, doing the same for social and cultural awareness. Are there one or two themes or social constructs that would allow students to circle back to as you present the content of the course? Again, we're not purging the content, rather making room for embedding needed skills within that content. In closing then, critical and creative thinking and social and cultural awareness are skills needed by our students. As educators and social scientists, we can embed these within our own classroom. Critical thinking and cultural awareness are skills that will guide our students toward their own freedom to innovate within their careers and fields. Freedom for academic innovation will ultimately help our businesses and our communities. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Pilgrim. That was an interesting and insightful presentation. Critical and creative thinking also become current focus in education in Indonesia as well. Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, last but not least is Associate Professor Wiyaka. who will deliver his topic about the practice of classroom assessments during curricular change, a case of in-service teachers. Mr. Wiyaka, are you there?
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you, moderator. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning, professors, speakers, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my presentation. First of all, allow me to thank the committee of the conference who give me opportunity to be one of the speakers in this very prestigious forum. Before we start the topic, let me introduce myself. As mentioned by the moderator, I am Dr. Wiyaka. Since several years ago up to the present time, I happen to be an educator in the pre-service and in-service teacher training program at Universitas PGRI Semarang. And today I'm going to present the result of my study on the practices of classroom assessment during curricular change, a case of in-service teachers in Indonesia. Okay. Yeah, let me share the screen.
It's working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will start my presentation by presenting the introduction and then followed by research method, results, and then ends with conclusions and recommendation. Okay, this is the background of my topic of my study. So the Ministry of Education has just released a Curriculum Merdeka, or in English, Freedom Curriculum. This was caused by the fact that 2 years ago, there was outbreak of the COVID-19 in Indonesia and even all over the world that forced the Indonesian government to change the mode of teaching learning process in schools from the face-to-face classroom to the online learning. And that's why the ministry changed the curriculum to, let's say, more simple curriculum, which is called the emergency curriculum. But now in Indonesia, there are 3 kinds of curriculum implemented in schools in Indonesia. That is curriculum 2013, and then emergency curriculum, or it's called also prototype curriculum. And the newest one is the so-called freedom curriculum or curriculum merdeka. But in reality, basically I'm speaking that teachers in Indonesia, I mean, some of them, I met them in here in schools in Semarang city here, that basically they are not quite ready with the changes of the curriculum. But they are compelled to implement the new curriculum. Yeah, that's the reality. And whether it will work or not, the new curriculum or curriculum merdeka, the evidence will come probably some years to go. Theoretically, the development of curriculum should be coincided with assessment methods. Usually talking about the curriculum is not a single topic, because there must be under factors and the components in the education system besides the curriculum. Yeah, okay. Well, theoretically, there is interrelated connection between curriculum and other factors in the educational system. It is not, curriculum is not exclusive component in the educational system. Theoretically, there are three other factors which is interconnected one to another: curriculum, and then instruction, and then assessment. And they are not always emphasized one to another. It doesn't mean that curriculum is more important than the instruction is more important than assessment. But yeah, they have to go to achieve the educational goals which is set by the government. But in reality, when there is a new curriculum, the assessment policy is sometimes neglected by the government, in the sense that when there is a workshop about curriculum, workshop on assessment is rarely practiced. Yeah, in the level of schools and also in the level of the educational offices. There is a new thing here, a new paradigm in the assessment on the basis of the new curriculum. There are three issues in the Curriculum Merdeka: the diagnostic assessment, the formative assessment, and the summative assessment. But I think formative and summative are not a new topic for teachers. Teachers usually familiar with formative and summative, but there is one type of assessment which is highlighted in the new curriculum, that is the diagnostic assessment. I do not want to, to talk much about the differences between one to another, but this is the focus of my study. I want to know whether the teachers really understand what is meant by each of the assessment method, and also how they implement each of these assessment type in schools. This is my research focus, describing teachers' perceived skill in classroom assessment. And then secondly, I want to examine teachers' practices in classroom assessment. That is under two factors on the basis of theory. This is the practices on the basis of function of assessment, and secondly, on the basis of the purposes of the assessment. I did the study by applying this method. The design is a survey. It is a survey, and the subjects are 376 participants. They are the in-service teachers who are at present, up to now, attending the teaching program, teacher development training program. It lasts 1 year, 2 semesters of the training, of the program. And they come from different regions or different provinces in Indonesia. So a number of them coming from Kalimantan, and then from Nusa Tenggara Timur, from East Java, from Central Java, and also the East Java. The instrument that I use in my research is a questionnaire consisting 54 items using 5-point Likert scale. and data analysis is descriptive statistic is used in this data analysis. This is the result of my study. Yeah, the demography profile of the subjects looks like this. Yeah, teachers are coming from different levels of schools, from kindergarten, elementary school, junior high school, and senior high school. And we can see from the graph here that most of the teachers, I mean the in-service teachers, are teachers at elementary schools, while the teachers from kindergarten is the least number with participants. This is the profile of the subjects they are teaching. Some subjects in here: English, physics, Bahasa Indonesia, biology, guidance counseling, math, and all subjects. So we can see from the graph here that is my voice audible, Bu Sukma?
Yes, Mr. Wiyaka, I'm sorry.
Is my voice
Yes.
audible?
Yes,
Okay.
audible. It's clearly.
Yeah, I'm afraid if my voice is not audible. Thank you.
No.
Yeah, so they are teachers of the subjects, English, physics, Bahasa Indonesia, and so on. And most of the teachers are reported to be the teachers in, let's say, all subjects. Yeah. It means that they are elementary school teachers, because based on the Indonesian educational system, teachers of elementary schools have to teach the main subjects, all subjects in elementary schools. Yeah, starting from science, mathematics, Bahasa Indonesia, and then civics and the others. So teachers in elementary school as well as in kindergarten, well, I'm not saying that kindergarten must have subjects, yeah, but they teach all subjects, all courses. Next. Yeah, working time. Working time. How many years they have been experiences in teaching, and they reported that 39% has been working for more than 15 years. It's surprising actually, because the requirement for anyone, any teacher to enroll in the program is only 5 years. But based on the data here, that 90% of the teachers have experiences, teaching experiences, so more than 15 years. It means that they have to wait, let's say, 10 years or 15 years before they then join the program for certification program. It's another question probably.
Sorry,
yeah.
You've got 2 minutes left.
Yeah.
Thank
okay.
you.
This is the teacher's perceived skills. Perceived skills are subdivided into 6 categories: criterion reference testing, grading practice, statistic applications, assessment, and essay items. They are reported low in statistic application. All right. Then this is the perceived practice on the concept of assessment, assessment of learning, assessment for learning, and assessment as learning. And they reported to be not quite skillful in assessment for learning. And then this is the teacher's practice in assessment on the basis of diagnostic, formative, and summative. They reported that the diagnostic assessments are rarely practiced by them. All right, and this is the conclusion. Teachers' perceived skills and is relatively moderate. Some needs improvement. Yeah, the skill with low percentage were on statistic applications and the designing high cognitive tests. Teachers reported frequent practices in all types of assessment on the basis of both functions and purposes. My recommendation is that in-service teachers need specialized courses, especially in the assessment, to maintain their current classroom assessment skills. The content of the courses that should be inserted in the curriculum of the in-service training program is on the designing high cognitive skill item, and also on the the analysis of the statistical in computing the result of the test. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Wiyaka, for sharing the ongoing issue, in Indonesia, particularly in Indonesia, Pak Wiyaka, about Merdeka Belajar. Very insightful presentation. Thank you so much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now we've come to the question and answer session. Since we have already overtime from the schedule, so I will directly go to the chat box. We already got one question on the chat box from Dr. Santos Kumar. The question goes to Professor Pilgrim. Professor Pilgrim, are you with me? Yeah, hi.
Yeah.
All right. The question is about, there are two questions. The first one, how do we foster an environment that encourages innovation in the classroom? And then question number two, is it possible to innovate without freedom? Please, Professor.
Well, the first question I see as two different levels in terms of innovation in the classroom. I think the first level in terms of how do we foster that environment really is at the administrative level. And I think it really speaks to what Professor Hardy was talking about in his keynote about leadership and the kinds of leadership we need at the university to allow this to occur. So we need it at that level. And that's why I wanted to continue to speak throughout my talk about the administrative support that we had, and I had the ability to innovate with this and to continue to kind of tweak it, and I'm still tweaking it. And then the other level, at the individual level within the classroom, is how, allowing students that freedom to innovate and to participate. So kind of those two levels in terms of fostering the environment. And I totally agree with Professor Hardy that I can't stress enough how much administration and leadership is needed, as he talked about. And then to innovate without freedom, sure, we can make science advances, of course, right? But it stifles our innovation, right? So can we make discoveries in the absence of that freedom? Sure. Is it going to stifle it? Absolutely. And so, we need that, the freedom. Without freedom and innovation, we're going to stifle our alternative opinions. And that's not possible to have those debates. I mean, that's what I mentioned in my keynote, is that's what's often happening in terms of our media outlet and what we read. We're reading one side of it. We're not getting the multiple opinions which are needed for that dialogue. So thank you. I hope I addressed it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. I assume that Dr. Santos already received your answer very well. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to go to someone who has already raised his hand. Yeah. Okay. We have Mr. Yanuar Harry. Would you like to deliver a question?
Thank you. I'm here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. I've enjoyed meeting with all of keynote speaker. I have two questions. The first question to Prof. Hardy. What skills should be lecture prepared for students' future leadership, especially in public leadership? And the second question for Prof. Colin Pilgrim. I've interested about social and cultural awareness and critical and creative thinking. In your opinion, how do we bring critical and creative thinking to productive thinking? Because in the era of education, critical and creative thinking and self-regulated learning bring to productivity. Thank you very much.
All right, so the question goes to Professor Hardy. Yeah, Mr. Yanuar.
So, Mr. Yanwar, good
please.
to see you this morning, and it is early morning for me. I think the question you asked was what we needed to develop in terms of teaching of public leadership, and I think it's a big question. But I think the essence of my response will be to be very clear about whose public you're talking about, and there is no security, no freedom to discuss the development of leadership skills unless you're very clear about the context. It's the point I made in my presentation. So public leadership normally refers to the role of government and at local and national level, but I'd urge you to reflect on how else and who else you impact by decisions that you take, whether you're government or whether you're non-governmental organizations, or indeed, importantly, if you're in the private corporate sector. So public leadership is about the impact, I think, of your decision-making on the lives of other people, the ordinary people. And, you know, I'm very much positive and very pleased to hear Professor Pilgrim's experimentation and innovation of her teaching. That must be applied across the board. We must try things out, but not without a full awareness of the impact of decisions that we take as leaders on various communities. So thanks for your question. I hope that answers.
Thank you. Is that address your question, Mr. Yanuar? Yes, all right. Thank you so much. That was excellent point delivered by Professor Hardy. The next, I will go to the chat box again. So the question will go to Professor Ismet, teaching Indonesian at Deakin University. The question is from Adebowale. And the question is, as reflected in your conclusion, what are those aspects of Indonesian language that you assume may not be taught by using online technology? Prof. Ismet? Oh, committee, please make Prof. Ismet unmute.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Already?
Can you question again? It wasn't clear. There was a problem with connection for a minute there. Can you repeat the question?
All right, no worries. I'll repeat it. As reflected in your conclusion, what are those aspects of Indonesian language that you assume may not be taught by using online technology?
That is not the. I think in language teaching is not just in Indonesian. For language teaching, there are certainly certain aspects of language teaching that cannot be delivered, that cannot be taught by using technology. And one of the main ones is to make how the students can have communicative competence. Now, understanding the language, knowing the grammar, and being able to make grammatical sentences are not all the skills that you need in learning a foreign language. But equally important is, how can you use this, the knowledge, the ability to construct correct sentences? How can you do that in real communication? And that's the communicative aspect of language. This is not possible through technology, at least cannot be done effectively through technology unless you use the technology for actual interaction, simultaneous conversation, for example. You could do that, but even that lacks something, because when you communicate with people face to face, it's not just the language that you say, it's not just the sentences that you say that communicate the idea, that communicate what you want to say, but it can be body language, facial expressions, and all of that. So technology cannot deliver that satisfactorily. In language teaching, therefore, no matter how good the technology is, face-to-face teaching would still be necessary, I think. And technology can do a lot of things, but there are a certain aspect of it. The most important, as I said, is to teach the communicative ability. I hope that's what being asked. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I agree with you, Professor Ismet. But now, Mr. Adebowale, he's raising his hand right now. So I would like to allow him to deliver something in this forum. Please, Mr. Adebowale. Mr. Adebowale, are you there? Am I correct saying your name? I'm sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, you try. I give you 99% of pronunciation of my name.
Oh, thank you. Please, you may deliver another question, or
no,
Professor Ismet is already addressed your answer, your question.
Yes, I want to add to what Prof said in order to disseminate information. Now, I really appreciate the delivery of the Prof. He really did justice to his lecture. So we appreciate it very well. Then we also appreciate the organizer of the conference for giving us the opportunity to freely participate. Now, my name is Adebowale Adebagbo from Nigeria. I'm coming from the background of, background of educational technology. And I want to delve into the evolving technology of augmented reality. Now, augmented reality can be of great assistance when we are talking about teaching language, because it can impose abstract on real objects. And if this augmented reality technology could be integrated into teaching language, depending on the dexterity or expertise of the person who is using it, it can leverage on any aspect of language learning or language teaching. As Prof. Riley mentioned that maybe the development skill of communication, this could be mastered through technology. Only that this technology is very scarce now, and very few people know about augmented reality. And that is why there is need for advocacy to make this augmented reality known to people in the educational sector. And also for governmental organizations to come in, because the use of augmented reality because of technology involved is very expensive. So there is need to find solution to funding augmented reality and making it available to teachers, the professional teachers, so that they can also redesign curriculum of the schools to include training on how to use augmented reality. This will go a long way to solve many problems in the educational sector. And that is my contribution to the discourse.
Okay,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Adebowale, please be directly send the question to one of the speakers. Or you only give us information about what you're doing right now in your country? Because your voice is not very clear to me.
Yeah, I agree. It sounds like it.
Yeah.
I didn't hear any question, but the comments is welcome.
Yeah.
Unless
but
they
I
are...
assume that your answer has already addressed his question, Prof. Thank you very much. All right. Apparently, ladies and gentlemen, we still have enormous questions or topic to be discussed. However, due to limited time, we need to end our question and answer session. I'm sorry. For selected remaining questions can be still addressed via email. Hopefully the speakers' emails, the speakers are willing to receive the questions via email. Yeah, Professor Pilgrim agree with me. Yes,
No
Professor
problem.
Hadi. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so the speakers' emails are available in the program book, everyone. So now allow me to conclude the presentation today. Allow me to take some highlight points. Weak leadership inhibits the promotion desired freedoms, including expressions, innovation, and change, as well as the maintenance of desired relevance. The 21st century is a particularly challenging time with a new independence and interconnectivity with the rapid growth in information, misinformation, and disinformation, and also new levels of uncertainty. Greater flexibility and more effective scaffolding can achieve if a required level of preparation on the part of the students. Prior to the implementation of the new curriculum Merdeka Belajar, only a small number of teachers got the opportunity to attend a special training in assessment. Therefore, an intensive training was needed to equip teachers with the skills of doing classroom assessment. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank the speakers, Professors Hardy, Professor Fanani, Professor Pilgrim, and Mr. Wiyaka for their informative and interesting presentation, and also to all the participants for their active participation. Please give applause for the speakers and for you all. Virtual applause. Thank you very much. All right, I should remind everyone that the next agenda is the second parallel session. For the presenters, please be aware to what room you are assigned in. And for the participants or audience, you may pick randomly what room you want to join in. At last, I say thank you very much and have another insightful session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bu
Prof.
Mega.
Hadi,
Thank
Prof.
you,
Yaka,
Prof.
Prof. Prof. Ismail. If you want to join the breakout room, please, and motivate the presenters to give questions or comments or
Okay.
anything.
Thank you sekali.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you too, Prof. Hopefully we can see again next time, Prof.
Thank you, Prof. Esmet.
Yang kita nilai adalah serapanya saja, karena seperti pengadaan barang mungkin butuh waktu.